The house was quiet, too quiet. The kind of silence that wraps around you like a thick fog, heavy and unmoving. It was late past midnight when I finally found the strength to climb the stairs. Each step creaked under my weight, the old wood whispering secrets of years past. I had spent the evening lost in thought, staring at the flickering light of the television, barely absorbing anything. My mind was restless, tangled in the web of emotions I couldn't quite name. My niece Olivia had come to stay with me for a few weeks. Her parents, my sister and her husband, were traveling abroad, leaving her in my care. She had just turned 19, blossoming into a young woman with an aura of quiet confidence. Though we had always been close, there was something different about this visit, an unspoken tension that lingered between us. I paused outside her door, my hand hovering over the doorknob. The faint sound of her breathing reached me, steady and soft. I hesitated. Why was I standing here? Why did I feel this inexplicable pull? Swallowing hard, I pushed the door open just enough to peek inside. Moonlight streamed through the sheer curtains, casting silver patterns across her sleeping form. She lay curled beneath the blanket, her hair fanned out over the pillow. A sigh escaped my lips. Maybe I was just overthinking things. Maybe it was exhaustion playing tricks on me. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling, the weight of something unspoken pressing against my chest. Quietly, I stepped inside, my bare feet sinking into the plush carpet. The room smelled of lavender, the scent she always loved. It was comforting, familiar, and yet it sent a shiver down my spine. I stood beside her bed, watching the gentle rise and fall of her chest. She looked peaceful, lost in a world of dreams. Part of me longed to turn away, to leave before I crossed a line I couldn't uncross. But another part, something deeper, something primal, kept me rooted in place. I sat at the edge of the bed, my fingers brushing against the soft fabric of the blanket. She stirred slightly but didn't wake. My heart pounded, a wild drum beat against my ribs. What was I doing? Why did this feel so forbidden yet so right? I closed my eyes, inhaling deeply. This was wrong, wasn't it? But the night held its own truths, whispered in the silence between breaths, in the spaces between dreams and waking. And in that moment, I wasn't sure if I wanted to fight it or let it consume me. The room felt smaller with me inside it, the air thick with something I couldn't name but could feel pressing against my skin. I remained still at the edge of Olivia's bed, my body half turned toward her, caught in the quiet rhythm of her breathing. I told myself I had only come to check on her, that I was merely making sure she was all right. Yet, if that were true, why did I hesitate to leave? Why did my fingers tighten against the fabric of the blanket as if anchoring me to this moment? A slow inhale, a shaky exhale. The dim glow of the street lamp outside filtered through the curtains, casting long shadows that danced across the walls. Her face, soft and serene in sleep, was illuminated by the silver light, making her look almost unreal, like something out of a dream. She shifted slightly, rolling onto her side, her arms slipping free of the covers. The oversized shirt she wore had ridden up slightly, revealing a sliver of smooth skin along her waist. It was an innocent sight, and yet my pulse quickened, betraying something far less innocent brewing inside me. I should go, I knew that. I should stand up, walk out of the room, close the door behind me, and pretend this moment never happened. But my body wouldn't move. Instead, my eyes traced the delicate line of her collarbone, the gentle curve of her shoulder. The warmth of her presence wrapped around me like an embrace, even though we weren't even touching. Olivia murmured in her sleep, a soft sound that sent a shiver down my spine. My throat went dry. I had never seen her like this before, not in this way. She had always been my niece, the girl I had helped raise, the child I had comforted when she scraped her knee or cried over a broken heart. But now she was something else entirely, a woman. A woman with soft lips and knowing eyes and a body that was no longer just familiar, it was mesmerizing. Guilt curled in my stomach, but it wasn't strong enough to overpower the need creeping up my spine, curling around my ribs like a vice. I reached out before I could stop myself. Just a touch, just one. My fingers hovered inches above her arm, hesitant, unsure, yet desperate. But before I could make contact, she stirred again. Her eyes fluttered open, just barely, a sleepy haze clouding her gaze. "Auntie," her voice was thick with sleep, drowsy and slow. I swallowed hard, my hand retreating quickly as if burned. I was just checking on you," I murmured, barely recognizing the sound of my own voice. She blinked at me, her brow furrowing slightly as she tried to fully wake. Then, to my surprise, a small smile ghosted across her lips. "You can stay if you want." Her words sent a shock through me, stealing the breath from my lungs. Did she know? Could she sense the turmoil inside me? Or was this simply the half-conscious mumbling of a girl still caught in the grips of sleep? I really shouldn't. But when she shifted over, making space for me in the bed, when she lifted the blanket in quiet invitation, I found myself unable to resist. My body moved before my mind could catch up, and the next thing I knew, I was slipping beneath the covers beside her. The bed was warm, her body heat radiating into the space between us. I lay stiffly on my back, staring at the ceiling, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure she could hear it. She, however, seemed completely unbothered. She simply turned toward me, curling up slightly, her head resting on the pillow just inches from mine. "This is nice," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. I turned my head, meeting her gaze. There was something unreadable in her eyes, something that made my stomach twist and my breath catch. The room was silent, the air between us charged with something neither of us dared name. She reached out then, her fingers brushing lightly against my arm, just a ghost of a touch, barely there but enough to send a jolt through me. I swallowed, my throat tightening. "Olivia," she didn't let me finish. Instead, she shifted closer, her body barely touching mine, but the proximity was intoxicating. "SHH," she whispered, her fingers trailing lower down to where my hand rested on the mattress. She laced her fingers through mine, giving a gentle squeeze. It was such a simple thing, innocent. And yet, it felt like the most intimate touch I had ever known. I should pull away. I should stop this before it started, but I didn't. Because in that moment, I wasn't her aunt. And she wasn't my niece. We were just two women lying in the dark, caught in the gravity of something neither of us could escape. And God help me, I didn't want to. The weight of the moment pressed against my skin, thick and suffocating, yet I made no move to break free from it. Olivia remained close, her fingers grazing along my wrist with a touch so deliberate it left a burning imprint behind. The space between us had shrunk to something almost non-existent, and though neither of us had spoken about what was happening, the silence itself had become a language of its own. There was no mistaking the way she looked at me now, eyes dark with something searching, something neither of us could ignore any longer. I should have turned away. I should have reminded her that this was a line we were never meant to cross, but I didn't. Instead, I found myself lingering in that unbearable closeness, caught in the slow, intoxicating pull of her warmth, of her presence, of the way she watched me as if daring me to give in. My breath felt trapped in my throat as she shifted beside me, her body barely brushing against mine, sending another shockwave through me. "You always take care of me," she murmured, her voice low and almost hesitant, yet there was something behind it, something that made my chest tight. "But who takes care of you?" The words struck deeper than I wanted to admit. For a moment I thought I would answer, that I would give some deflective, dismissive response, but the words never came. My silence only seemed to embolden her, as if she had sensed my hesitation and decided to follow it deeper. Her fingers traced lazy circles along the sensitive skin of my arm, each touch a quiet question, a test of how far I would let this go. I inhaled sharply, my body reacting before my mind could catch up. "Olivia," I whispered, barely recognizing my own voice, strained and uncertain. She didn't stop. If anything, she grew bolder. She shifted again, and this time she didn't just brush against me, she stayed close, letting her body mold into the space beside mine, her warmth seeping into me in a way that made it impossible to ignore. The scent of lavender clung to her skin, familiar yet suddenly overwhelming, pulling me deeper into a haze I knew I shouldn't allow myself to fall into. Her hand, still resting against my wrist, slid upward, trailing over the bare skin of my arm with a slowness that felt almost torturous. My breath caught as she reached my shoulder, then down again, as if memorizing every inch of the distance between us. The touch wasn't forceful, wasn't rushed. It was patient, as if she was giving me every opportunity to pull away, to put an end to whatever this was before it became irreversible. But I didn't move. I didn't stop her. And that, more than anything, terrified me. Because despite every reason I had to walk away, I wanted to stay. The silence between us deepened, no longer just an absence of sound but a presence of its own, thick with unspoken words and untamed emotions. She was waiting for me, waiting for something I wasn't sure I could give, yet she never looked away, never retreated, as if she knew I was already too far gone to resist. Her fingers finally came to rest against my palm again, slipping between mine with quiet certainty, anchoring us together in a way that felt irreversible. "You don't have to be strong all the time," she whispered, her voice softer, now more intimate. "Not with me." The last barrier between us wavered, and I wasn't sure if I had the strength to keep holding it up. A sharp breath shuddered through me as Olivia's fingers remained entwined with mine, her warmth bleeding into my skin like ink sinking into paper, permanent, irreversible. The air in the room felt heavier, thick with something electric, something neither of us had the courage to name but couldn't ignore. She didn't move away. If anything, she settled into the space beside me as if she belonged there, as if the distance that once separated us had never truly existed at all. I could still hear the quiet rhythm of her breathing, steady yet laced with an anticipation that mirrored my own. I knew I should have pulled away then, should have severed this moment before it could spiral into something we could never take back, but my body betrayed me. Instead of retreating, I stayed, held in place by the heat of her touch and the soft, silent plea in her gaze. The room was impossibly still, yet every second felt stretched thin, vibrating with an energy I could feel in the marrow of my bones. Olivia's fingers tightened around mine, her thumb brushing slow, deliberate circles against my skin. The motion sent a ripple of something unsteady through me, something dangerously close to surrender. My mind screamed at me to speak, to say anything that would put an end to the mounting tension between us, but the words never came. And then before I could stop her, before I could think, she moved. A shift so slight it was barely there, yet I felt it as if the very ground beneath me had tilted. Her leg brushed against mine beneath the covers, a soft, barely there caress that sent a shiver crawling up my spine. My breath hitched, and she noticed. A slow, knowing smile ghosted across her lips. Not teasing, not coy, but something quieter. Something that told me she was waiting, giving me the chance to step away, to pull the thread loose before it unraveled completely. But I didn't move. Instead, I let the warmth of her seep deeper, let the sensation of her fingers tracing over the back of my hand settle into my skin. Every touch, every shift of her body against mine was slow, unhurried, as if she was giving me all the time in the world to change my mind. But she must have known even before I did that I wouldn't. "You're trembling," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper, but in the silence of the room it felt deafening. I exhaled sharply, my grip tightening against the sheets beneath me. "It's late," I said, though even to my own ears, it sounded more like a feeble attempt at distraction than a real protest. She hummed softly, her breath warm against my shoulder as she shifted even closer, her body aligning against mine in a way that made it impossible to ignore the nearness of her. "Then sleep," she whispered, but there was something playful in her tone, something that told me she knew neither of us would be able to close our eyes now. Her fingers, which had lingered on my hand, trailed upward again, ghosting along my wrist before pressing gently against the inside of my arm. A shudder passed through me before I could stop it, and the way she watched me, like she was committing every reaction to memory, made my stomach tight. The weight of her gaze was unbearable, and yet I couldn't bring myself to look away. The silence stretched between us, heavy and charged, until it was no longer something we could ignore. And then, in a moment that felt both too fast and too slow, Olivia lifted her free hand, her fingertips brushing along my jaw, tilting my face toward hers. My pulse roared in my ears. I should stop this, I should pull away. But when she leaned in, slow, careful, giving me every chance to break away, I stayed. And then before I could second guess it, before I could remind myself of all the reasons why this was a mistake, her lips grazed mine. The moment her lips brushed mine, time seemed to collapse in on itself. It wasn't rushed or forceful, wasn't demanding or reckless. It was hesitant, so painfully slow that it sent a deep, aching heat curling through my chest. Olivia wasn't claiming, wasn't taking. She was waiting, lingering in the breath between us, as if giving me the choice to lean in or pull away. I should have pulled away. I should have severed this fragile, dangerous moment before it could root itself any deeper. But I didn't. Instead, I lingered. My lips parted slightly, not quite a response, not quite a refusal, just enough for her to feel the soft, shaky breath that left me. She stilled at that, hovering so close I could feel the warmth of her, the uncertainty flickering behind her boldness. A heartbeat passed, then another, and then, so slow it was almost imperceptible, she pressed forward. The kiss was light, barely a whisper of contact, but it sent a shiver racing down my spine. The softness of it, the sheer patience, it made my breath catch in my throat. Olivia wasn't rushing, wasn't pushing. She was giving me every opportunity to stop this, to pull away before we crossed the point of no return. But I had already crossed it. A quiet sound left me, something unintentional, something betraying the way my body responded before my mind could catch up. I felt the way her fingers tightened slightly against my arm, how her breath hitched at the sound. She pulled back just a fraction, enough for our lips to separate but not enough for the moment to break. Her eyes met mine in the dim light, searching, waiting. "Tell me to stop," she whispered, her voice barely more than a breath, but in the silence between us it was deafening. I swallowed hard, my pulse thudding relentlessly against my ribs. The words were there, waiting on the tip of my tongue, but they never came. Because the truth was, I didn't want her to stop. I didn't want to erase this moment, didn't want to shove it back into the darkness where it could be ignored. And Olivia saw it. A slow, knowing smile ghosted across her lips. Gentle, patient, but undeniably sure. Then with a quiet sort of confidence, she leaned in again, pressing her lips fully against mine this time. It was still soft, still unhurried, but there was no hesitation now. Her fingers trailed along my arm, over my shoulder, grazing the side of my neck in a way that made my skin erupt in shivers. My own hands, previously frozen, gripping the sheets as if they could tether me to reason, moved on their own. One found its way to her waist, tentative at first, but when she made no move to stop me, I let my fingers sink into the warmth of her skin. The slow burn that had been simmering between us erupted into something deeper, something undeniable. Olivia shifted closer, her body molding against mine in a way that left no space between us. My breath stuttered as she deepened the kiss, her lips parting just enough to draw me further into her warmth. I was losing myself in her. And God help me, I didn't want to stop. Everything blurred into sensation, her warmth, her touch, the soft, deliberate press of her lips against mine. The world outside this moment ceased to exist. There was only Olivia, only the quiet but undeniable pull of her body against mine, the way her fingers moved with gentle certainty as they traced over my skin. She kissed me again, slower this time, as if savoring the way I shuddered beneath her touch. Her lips lingered, pressing, retreating. then returning with a deliberate patience that sent heat curling through my stomach. My fingers, once hesitant, found their way to her waist, and when she pressed closer, when she melted into the space I had unwittingly created for her, something inside me cracked open. I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't want this. But every time she exhaled against my lips, every time her fingers skimmed over my skin with an almost reverent slowness, the weight of reason unraveled. "Olivia," I whispered, her name slipping past my lips like a confession, but it only seemed to encourage her. She tilted her head, her nose grazing mine, her breath warm and uneven as she waited, watching me in the dim glow of the room. Her gaze was searching, cautious yet unrelenting, as if she needed me to say it, to let her know this wasn't one-sided. I swallowed hard, my fingers curling against the fabric of her shirt. "I don't know what I'm doing," I admitted, my voice shaking despite the fire licking at my spine. She smiled softly, her lips still hovering close. "Then let me," she murmured, and before I could respond, she kissed me again. But this time there was something deeper, something that spoke of unspoken desires and quiet surrender. Her hand moved up, skimming along my jaw, her thumb brushing over my cheekbone in a touch so tender it sent a shiver racing through me. I let out a soft, shaky breath, my grip on her tightening as I gave in not just to her, but to the way this moment was consuming me whole. The room seemed smaller now, the air thick with something we had both ignored for too long. Every brush of her lips, every slow, deliberate touch unraveled another thread of restraint, another unspoken rule that no longer mattered. She wasn't in a hurry, wasn't demanding. I could feel it in the way her hands moved, the way she allowed me to dictate the pace even as she guided me deeper into the warmth of her presence. My pulse roared in my ears as her fingers traced the line of my collarbone, sending a spark of awareness down my spine. It wasn't just the touch itself, but the way she did it, light, exploratory, as if learning me piece by piece. I sucked in a breath, my eyes fluttering closed. And when her lips found the curve of my jaw, when she lingered there for a heartbeat too long, I felt myself slipping, letting go of whatever had been holding me back. There was no turning back now. And deep down I knew I didn't want to. The air between us felt charged, humming with an energy neither of us dared to name, but neither of us could deny. I could hear my own heartbeat, loud and erratic, echoing the way Olivia's breath hitched against my skin. She didn't rush, didn't push, just lingered, her fingers tracing light, wandering patterns over my arm, over my waist, as if memorizing every inch of me with careful reverence. And I let her. Her touch was warm, slow, the kind of deliberate that left no room for uncertainty, yet she held back just enough, as if waiting for me to catch up, to fully accept what was happening. I had been frozen before, trapped somewhere between hesitation and surrender. But with every shift of her body against mine, with every quiet, stolen breath between kisses, I felt myself slipping further into the gravity of her. She dipped her head, her lips grazing the side of my neck, and I sucked in a sharp breath, my fingers tightening against the fabric of her shirt. I could feel the way her lips curved slightly, as if she knew exactly what she was doing to me. But there was no teasing in the way she moved, only patience, only a quiet kind of devotion that sent a shiver racing down my spine. "Are you okay?" she whispered, her voice barely more than a breath, but I heard it loud and clear. It was more than a question, it was an offering, a chance to stop, to walk away before we crossed the point of no return. But I wasn't walking away. I exhaled shakily, nodding as my grip on her waist tightened, silently telling her what I couldn't quite put into words. Something shifted in her then, something subtle yet undeniable. She kissed me again, slower this time, as if she was savoring the moment just as much as I was. The room around us faded, the weight of the world outside these four walls ceasing to matter. There was only this, only her. Olivia moved with careful intent, her touch light but firm as she guided me deeper into the moment, never once letting me feel lost in it. I let my hands wander, let my body respond without overthinking, without second-guessing. Every movement was unspoken but understood, a silent language neither of us had spoken before but somehow knew fluently in this moment. Time lost its meaning. The world outside of this room no longer existed. There was only the quiet sound of our breathing, the press of our bodies against each other, and the unshakable realization that no matter what came next, nothing would ever be the same again. The room felt impossibly small, as if the walls themselves were closing in, trapping us inside this moment that neither of us wanted to escape. Olivia's warmth, her presence, the slow, deliberate way she moved, it all wrapped around me like a cocoon, making it impossible to think beyond the here and now. Her hands traced a path down my sides, a whisper of touch that left a trail of heat in its wake. She was taking her time, not rushing, not demanding, just feeling, just discovering. And I let her. I let myself melt into the weight of her, into the way she fit against me like she had always belonged there. When she kissed me again, it was deeper, more certain. Her fingers curled into my hair, tilting my head just enough to steal another breath from me. I responded without thinking, my own hands wandering, finding the shape of her, the heat of her skin beneath my fingertips. Everything was slow, unhurried, as if we had all the time in the world. She moved closer, her breath warm against my skin, her lips pressing softly to my jaw, then lower. Quiet sound escaped me, something involuntary, something I couldn't hold back even if I wanted to. She heard it, felt it, and I could sense the way it affected her, the way her fingers tightened slightly as if holding herself back. "Are you sure?" she murmured against my skin, her voice gentle but steady, like she needed to hear it from me again, needed to be certain. I swallowed, my pulse thrumming wildly, my body already answering before my lips could form the words. I turned my head slightly, meeting her gaze in the dim light. There was something unreadable in her expression, something careful, something protective. And in that moment, any lingering hesitation inside me disappeared. I nodded. She let out a slow breath, as if she had been holding it, waiting for my answer. Then, with a softness that made my heart ache, she kissed me again. There was no more hesitation, no more uncertainty, just us. The world outside didn't exist, and I didn't want it to. The air between us thickened, humming with something unspoken yet undeniable. Olivia's breath was warm against my skin, her touch a slow, deliberate exploration that sent a shiver coursing through me. Every movement was careful, every brush of her fingertips against my arm, my waist, my back, purposeful. It wasn't just hunger, wasn't just desire. It was something deeper, something unshakable. She was memorizing me and I was letting her. My fingers curled into the fabric of her shirt, gripping as if that alone could ground me, could tether me to something solid when everything inside me felt like it was unraveling. She felt it, the way my breathing turned uneven, the way my body trembled beneath her touch. And instead of rushing, instead of taking, she slowed down even more. She wanted me to feel every second of this. Her lips found my neck, pressing soft, lingering kisses that left my pulse hammering wildly. My head tilted back slightly, a sharp inhale slipping past my lips before I could stop it. Olivia stilled for half a second, as if committing that sound to memory, and then her hands, her hands, slid lower, her fingers tracing my skin with a feather-light touch that sent heat surging through me. I exhaled shakily, my grip on her tightening, and she smiled against my skin, just a small, knowing curve of her lips, but I felt it like a brand. She was patient, achingly so, as if savoring every second, as if she had been waiting for this moment just as long as I had, even if neither of us had ever admitted it before now. I turned my head, searching for her lips again, and when I found them, it was different this time. There was no hesitation, no restraint, only certainty. Only the quiet, undeniable truth that nothing could pull us apart now. The night stretched before us, endless and full of possibilities. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of where it would take us. The world outside no longer existed. There was only the quiet hush of the room, the soft rustling of sheets as Olivia shifted closer, the warmth of her body pressing against mine. Her fingers, steady yet exploratory, traced the shape of my spine, sending delicate shivers through me. It wasn't hurried, wasn't careless. Every touch was deliberate, each movement speaking a language I was only just beginning to understand. I let out a shaky breath, my fingers curling around her shoulders, my mind unable to keep up with the sensations flooding through me. Every nerve in my body was on edge, every inch of me acutely aware of her, of the way her breath hitched as my hands wandered, of the quiet exhale she gave when I met her touch with my own. She kissed me again, slower this time, her lips molding against mine with a tenderness that stole the breath from my lungs. There was no rush, no desperate urgency, just a steady, unspoken pull between us, drawing us closer with each passing second. Her hands trailed down my sides, lingering at my waist before sliding lower, a gentle yet possessive touch that left a searing heat in its wake. My pulse pounded, my thoughts dissolving into nothing but sensation as she pulled me further under. A soft sound escaped me, barely a whisper, but Olivia heard it. I felt the way she paused, the way she let the moment stretch between us as if giving me one last chance to step back. But I didn't want to step back. I wanted more. I met her gaze in the dim glow of the room, searching for something: reassurance, certainty, maybe even control. But all I found was warmth, understanding, a quiet, unshakable patience that told me she would follow my lead, no matter where this night took us. So I took the lead. My hands found hers, guiding them, wordlessly telling her what I wanted. She understood immediately, responding with a touch that sent another rush of warmth through me. My breath hitched, my body reacting before my mind could catch up. She kissed me again, deeper this time, as if sealing a silent promise between us. And I let go. I let myself fall completely into her, into the moment that had been building between us for far longer than either of us had ever dared to admit. The night stretched endlessly around us, wrapping us in the warmth of something neither of us could name, yet both of us understood. Olivia's arms remained steady around me, her fingers still tracing soft, absent-minded circles against my skin, as if she wasn't quite ready to let go of the moment. And neither was I. My breathing was still uneven, my body humming in the quiet aftermath of everything that had just transpired between us. I hadn't known what to expect, hadn't even let myself imagine how it would feel, how she would feel. But now that I knew, now that every part of me was tangled up in her, I realized there was no going back. And I didn't want to go back. Olivia let out a slow breath, pressing a lingering kiss to my shoulder before resting her forehead against mine. There was something unspoken in her touch, something in the way she held me that made my chest tight. It wasn't just desire, it was something more, something real. "Are you okay?" she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. I swallowed, nodding as I reached for her hand, intertwining our fingers beneath the sheets. "Yeah," I breathed. "More than okay." A small smile tugged at her lips, and she squeezed my hand gently, as if grounding me, as if making sure I knew this wasn't a mistake. Silence settled between us, but it wasn't awkward. It was the kind of silence that spoke louder than words, that filled the space between breaths with unspoken understanding. I had spent so much of my life thinking I knew myself, thinking I understood the limits of my own desires, my own boundaries. But Olivia had unraveled something inside me, something I hadn't even known was waiting to be discovered. And now, as I lay beside her, my body still humming with the memory of her touch, I realized I didn't regret a single thing. Olivia reached up, tucking a stray strand of hair behind my ear, her gaze searching mine. "What happens now?" she asked softly. I exhaled a slow, steady breath, feeling the weight of her question settle over me. I didn't have an answer, not yet. But as I looked into her eyes, as I felt the steady warmth of her beside me, I knew one thing for certain. Whatever came next, I wanted her to be a part of it.